Sleep Podcast.
It's the No Sleep Podcast. I'm Erica Sanderson. Thanks for joining us. David's decided to take a little break after the tour. And
What?
no, wait, no, what are you
Get
doing?
away from that mic!
Microphone.
Give
No,
that!
no, stop.
Be gone! Such insolence. Now, I am back. So, it's the No Sleep Podcast. I am indeed David Cummings. Thanks for joining us. On this week's show, we have 5 tales about aggressive art, chilling children, and terrifying travels. As things start to return to normal at No Sleep headquarters, I'm happy to announce that everyone on the tour finally arrived home safe and sound. It was quite an adventure. And at the risk of self-aggrandizing, I believe we accomplished something never before done in the history of the podcasting medium. We gathered a cast from 3 countries, flew to America, and embarked on a 16-city, 23-day tour. We drove over 6,000 miles in total and performed in front of almost 3,000 fans. There have been live podcasts before, but I think our combination of the size of the cast, the distance traveled, the number of dates, and the sheer scope of the overall tour makes it the most ambitious tour of any single podcast. And when all is said and done, the tour was a resounding success. We were thrilled to meet so many wonderful fans. We heard such incredible stories about what this show means to people, the way it has entertained and helped our listeners. For the first time in its almost 6-year history, we were able to speak with
We are doing well
folks
today.
and learn what all our
Try
hard
and
work is accomplishing.
not make my
It's
mic go up.
overwhelming and heartwarming. I know I speak for the entire cast when I say that it was a life-changing experience.
There, I think.
For those
Hopefully,
who attended
maybe,
the
I don't
shows,
know.
I cannot thank you enough for your love and support.
Ow.
You gave us infinitely more.
I hope you're
than
doing well
we
tonight,
could
today,
And
whatever
now that we've
time
learned
for
how
you
to tour,
folks.
we just might do it again at some point. We have lots of new places to visit. Yes, Atlanta, we see you and your brethren in the Southeast U.S. Maybe some shows in Canada. God knows a show in my hometown of Toronto might happen sooner than later. Who knows? We have enough people in England to do some shows there, although Miss Sanderson's recent naughtiness might make her inclusion
Understandable.
ambiguous. Perhaps
Confusion.
Europe, Asia, Antarctica. Getting ahead of myself. Wherever we are, I look forward to new shows and meeting both
Sorry, my
you
brain's a
and
little
your
bit
faces alike.
not in it.
All our fans are so incredibly supportive and will never be able to adequately express what you mean to us. So, life returns to normal, and part of the normal process is another weekly episode. Again, thanks mostly to our home team, we have a new one ready to start. So, it's time to kick off this week's show.
England. Huh? England? What? Confusion.
In our first
This is
tale, we
a,
meet a
like,
man who recounts an event from
years ago episode.
As explained by author F.F., it was during a tumultuous time with his parents, and his attempt to get some attention led to a most
Yeah, this one was from, like,
intense
this
and
episode was from
unsettling
2017, I believe.
events. Performing this tale
No,
are
like,
Matthew Bradford, Kyle Akers,
it's
and Teresa
long
Sanders.
ago.
So let's listen as the man explains why this was my last prank.
That. Let's go. I think I take
was 11 years old when it happened.
This.
As a kid, I knew that something wasn't quite right with the events that unfolded at the time.
We do this. We do this.
Under any circumstances by either of my
We
parents,
do this,
something
I
always
think.
stuck with me. I can't say it's a memory that I tried to suppress, seeing as it was always there at the back of my mind, bothering me like an itch that wouldn't go away unless properly
And
scratched.
then
It's only
we
when I
do
reached adulthood
this.
that I started to realize that
For
certain
240, take out one of his
find the
mons.
same vivid memories creeping back in.
We go from that.
A lot of times through the years, I'd find myself looking up our old house on the web, only to realize that it was still there.
But yeah, I hope you have been well,
The same as it did back
folks.
then. Still does. And from the look of it, no one else was allowed inside after we were abruptly forced to leave. I remember
That is fair enough.
the curiosity is unsquashed for the most part thanks to a very real and terrifying sense of dread. My
Make
parents
a
are
good
gone.
choice
I can't get answers
spelt.
from them anymore.
Judge.
Probably for the best, considering everything they both went through. Especially my mother.
We do this.
Well, maybe the inspector is still alive today, but I sure as hell don't want to go back there. I'm certain the last thing he'd want.
And I
would
think
be
we just
to see me again.
melodious,
So, like I
melodious
said,
echo again.
leaves me,
A knock.
you.
Take another prize. I don't know, which is good.
The fact that I will never get closure on this.
Okay then.
Throwing it out here in case someone could help me figure things out. Even if
I
you
feel
still
that.
know about my story and why I never pranked my parents again after the whole ordeal.
Honestly, I have just been my
parents were going
normal
through a range
anxious.
in heated discussions almost every other day.
Especially even now more a bit anxious because
I didn't even know what that was.
I am doing something this weekend which I am
I didn't want to
semi going to be regret doing
started all over again from scratch.
because I need to
Me extremely anxious.
re-put together this deck IRL
Research to do there.
for this weekend,
I asked her how long we were going to stay.
which is going to cause me to be very haha funny anxiety
My father
stressed.
also resented her for it, though he was probably just salty for
Ow.
having to rely on my mother for everything, mostly his own expenses. So we all moved to a small village in Romania.
I don't know why. I think the weather's just killing me for
Seeing as I was accustomed to the big and
brain
stressful
like
cities.
tiredness.
Yes, I was a shitty brat, but the whole situation didn't really help me in any way.
And also, after this match, I need to go check my laundry because I started it a while ago.
School time was atrocious, considering that most kids couldn't speak proper English. The teachers didn't care much either, probably thinking I'd be gone in no time, back to where I belong.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Go call for help. I thought that the only natural thing for me to do would be to run away.
This, I think, is actually quite a good hand because
Figured, hey,
if I'm not going first, yeah, I'm not going first. So I can just battle VIP pass, do Cramorant,
spent a couple of
Cramomatic,
days about
grab myself an energy, I think,
much of a genius I was.
judge
Of course, I didn't want to go through all
for
that
a completely new
right
hand.
away. So if I could just make it seem like I had, the end result
That's
would be
fair.
the same. There was this old adder, crowded with stuff that the previous owners had left behind for some reason.
And I don't know if I
Guess
want to,
they just had a lot of crap.
if I
and
should
they figured they'd take
judge.
it all back with them, wherever they moved to. My mother didn't want me up there because it was so
Okay,
dirty and dusty,
Cramomat
and filled
failed.
with rats and all sorts of bugs bigger than my own wee hands. Give her credit, it really did seem
That
like I
works.
hadn't
We
been through
go.
During one of my stealthy attic explorations, I came across
Then
a
we go
small
double
black
turbo.
closet. Or maybe it
Fusion
was
strike
just a
again.
I can't recall exactly. All I know is that I
We
found
go
it
at
in
least
my
Sparkle
For the
for,
next couple of days,
I
I got
guess,
some
those
chips
two.
in my backpack, along with a couple of sodas. The
And we
rest of
just
my
do
so-called
that.
time hinged on whether my
And I
parents
can
would
just
see me or
evolve
not.
these guys
The
after.
kitchen was located on the first floor. I left the window open.
Then we do
Sitting on a poorly
this.
lit nightlight made next to my bed sheets. After looking
I don't
around,
want
my
to.
parents would find my backpack, boots.
The opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. Put 3 damage counter on this Pokemon.
Hiding just above them. Can't say I thought extensively about every single
Well, I'll just bring out Mew that way. I can just reverse it
I
anyways.
could always do it in a corner of the attic. That old and weird smell, you just wouldn't be able to tell it apart from the rest.
Search deck for 2 cards with humans here. What's this do? This Pokemon is preferred. Okay.
Fortunately for me, a week or so before my escapade, there was a job presentation at the school. A woman from the local police station.
I think we do that. We do this. We do this.
At least in the immediate area.
We do this.
I got up
Power tablet.
Everything in motion.
Chromomatic.
With my bedroom. Took my time making my way upstairs and hiding. Now that everything was in place, it became nothing more but a waiting game for me. Even though I had no idea.
I think I take a choice spell here.
I'd get bored pretty quickly when
Attach it to this.
last a few days at most.
Fusion Strike.
Kind of expected to be found out right from the start.
That works. Guess I just do that. We do this.
The sound of my parents' voices. They were
Crud.
yelling my name as they looked for me in and outside the house. It wasn't that bad at first.
Do Fusion Strike again. Wow, that was terrible.
Finally desperate in tone. Felt terrible when I heard
We
my
swap.
mom starting to cry. And that's when I realized I would be in big trouble when they would eventually find me. Why at the time I decided to stay put. Put my presence right then and there. After all the
210.
back and forth, they finally left in a hurry.
No, we'll just miracle, I
I
think.
quickly realized that the best thing to do would be to go straight to the police station. I took this opportunity to relieve myself and fill up my stomach without having to worry about making loud noises. I also peeked out of the attic window and saw some older women outside chit-chatting, pointing to our house. As more and more people started poking their heads out of their homes as well. What the fuck had I just done? I made a terrible miscalculation, and every passing moment I could only feel my shame growing, as well as dreading the unavoidable scolding and punishment that awaited me.
That works out super well in my favor.
Back in my hiding spot.
We just judge.
Pretend to have fallen asleep in there. Just make up a story about someone trying to kidnap me, but then left me in the attic for whatever reason. I thought about dozens of scenarios, all ridiculous in hindsight. I wanted the cops to come up to the attic and find me. They did come to the attic at some point. They quickly left. There was a big commotion going on. I could tell that there were people in every single section of the house. I heard a loud noise coming from outside.
Okay.
Someone was talking on a speakerphone.
That'll be fine. We do that. Get 2 free cards.
Besides a couple
40 damage. It's not that big of a deal.
men and women gathering outside. All of them policemen. I didn't understand what
Another Elisa Sparkle. Simply take that, attach it to Mew. Either Mew V.
home through the woods not too far from our homes. I had never thought things would escalate like that, that's for sure, but it made sense. I could even see the edge of the woods from the window as the search party moved towards it. My parents stayed home, because I could hear my father trying to calm me.
That's not good, that's not good, that's not good.
A couple of times, but I felt terrible. I wanted to go down and apologize to them. I was so fucking scared of the repercussions. I couldn't deal with the thought that I might have
I think we go Power Tablet.
serious trouble because the police ended up getting involved.
We do this.
I was mostly glued to the window, having the
Get rid of that.
I wouldn't hide anymore. I wanted someone
Guess we Iono maybe.
I was too much of a baby to own up to my mistakes. I know I was only 11 at the time, but I knew what I did was wrong.
We do this.
Thing about it. A few hours later, nighttime, an ambulance slowly pulled over next to our place. I didn't really understand right away why someone had called an ambulance since I wasn't hurt. I and I saw 3 men coming out of it with a gurney, rushing into the woods. Sure enough, not too long after that, a whole bunch of
I just need one energy,
emerging from
please.
the woods, indicating that
Okay,
close. I immediately realized that someone might have gotten hurt during the search, and I started panicking again. How serious was it? What if someone died because of me? My ears were ringing. My heart was
240.
beating so fast that I thought I was going to pass out. The wait for everyone to come back was atrocious, but it seemed like they were taking their time, as if they dreaded the moment they would see my parents again, which I assumed was understandable, considering that they hadn't. The paramedics were the first to come back. When I saw the gurney, I almost lost my footing. There was someone.
We do this.
She was covered all the way up.
I guess we do this.
Likely dead because of
Get rid of this.
I heard the front door open. Saw my mother rushing out to the front. My father quickly following in her steps as he tried to grab her. The inspector, the man who earlier on had
We do this.
right before she reached the paramedics. Some words were briefly exchanged. Turned to the paramedics, and one of them lifted the cover on the body. Couldn't see anything from where I was. Since at that very instant, I felt like my whole consciousness had been slingshot out of reality.
Think I'll just die on now.
Thankfully, the only time I had heard that painful scream. Felt like something had torn apart inside me. To know that whatever I might have
No, fusion strike.
happened caused that indescribable pain to my mother. I can't recall what was going through my mind at that point. All I knew was that this was something my mother, or any mother, would never recover from. And to know that I was the cause of it all.
I think I just do that, but don't really know what to do here.
Forgive myself.
Too
I
much.
was screaming and wailing as my father and the inspector dragged her back into the house. I decided that I had had enough. I wanted her to see and know that I was okay. I wanted to apologize. Crying immediately. If it was too much for me to bear, I couldn't even begin to imagine what she was going through. And down the stairs, everything feeling almost like an out-of-body experience, and eventually met them in the hallway just as the 3 of them got inside. I remember yelling, "Mom!" For a brief moment, as if everything came to a standstill. My mother then rushed towards me and collapsed to the ground. She hugged and held me against her.
I think I have to just do this.
For a moment, I really thought she would never let go of me. Frankly, I was okay with that. It meant I would never hear or see her in that same state ever again. First, I resisted looking at my father and the inspector, but I realized that my mother's embrace would provide sufficient protection against any immediate repercussion. So I did, and I was surprised to see that neither of them was angry, or even relieved for that matter.
I don't think I win this.
They both looked astonished and scared. Father to the ground with his ass, his hands covering his mouth.
I'm 90% sure I lose this.
Onto a desk near the entrance, as if he had momentarily lost his balance. Why didn't you say you were twins? Father had his eyes still fixated on me and didn't answer right away.
We don't.
The inspector, who was also eyeing me in a cautious manner, instinctively turned to face him.
Don't have twins. It's just him. That's our kid. That's him.
But outside, you saw.
No,
Even the clothes are exactly.
I know, but I don't fucking know.
No, this is our baby. This is our son. He's okay. He's okay.
There was a brief pause as everyone tried to regain their composure.
If you're lying.
Nope,
Do you
I lose.
really think this is a joke?
I was on the verge of tears as he pointed towards my mother and I. The inspector looked over to
I
us once again.
Don't
This time I saw sorrow and compassion.
lose.
Guessing he had already seen his fair share of cases along the years, and he had just learned to distinguish
Huh?
what was real and what was merely an act. The inspector recited something in his native language and wiped the sweat off his brow as he did a religious gesture.
210.
You go. I will drive you myself to the airport.
I do.
I think my father was about to say something.
Oh shoot! I should have
The inspector's request.
retreated actually into this view, and then I would have been able to win.
About what are you going to do about the...
Father choked on his words as the memory of it made him visibly sick.
I will take care of it, but you don't come back. You don't tell anyone. Ever.
And we did
At the
exactly
end of
what
your
he told
opponent's
us.
next turn, the defending
Does
Pokemon will
something
be
even
knocked
more
out.
with a large band with tin
We do
cans.
this, I think, and I think we may be able to win.
The airport. Upon arrival, my mother thanked him, but he quickly turned around without a word and went back to his village. And we went on to board our flight and get back to our home city. It's true that this whole thing brought us closer together again. Father got a new job shortly after we got back, and parents ended up making amends and everything. It's a crazy.
I think I might be able to win this. I genuinely don't know. World of Ruin.
Yes, we got back our happiness. The cost of it is something that I will never forget nor comprehend. I know deep down that it was the same for my parents. Someone died on that day.
Oh no, we do this, and then 220 just to be safe, and we take this and we win. Yes. Okay, that was genuinely a little bit concerning because I thought I was gonna lose there. I will be right back. Yeah, I just need to quickly, as I said, go check the laundry situation, and I'll be right back.
One house all the kids want to avoid, the yard you simply must stay out of. But as we learn from author J.J. Cheeseman, the reason to avoid the house in this story isn't just based on wild childhood imagination. Performing this tale are Jesse Cornett, Mike Delgadio, Dan Zapula, Nicole Doolin, and Alexis Bristow. So pay attention when you're told to avoid the property of Mr. Cracks.
My first big move into a new house happened when I was 12 years old. It was still in Illinois and it was still in Danville, so I didn't have to change schools. Man, that didn't stop me from hating it at first. The idea of moving out of my childhood home seemed wrong to me. 129 Elm Street was the home where I'd spent 12 Christmases and 12 birthdays. And I was trading it in for 44 High Street, a home in which I held no emotional connection. The house on Elm Street was an old home with a lot of what I would describe now as character. As an only child, I spent a lot of time in that big old house playing pretend in the attic and basement, where I was free to do as I pleased, without much adult supervision. I suppose that was another reason I initially hated the move. Our new home on High Street was exactly that, new. It was a recently established neighborhood on the north side, what a lot of people referred to as the rich part of town. Maybe I should have been excited that we were getting an upgrade. Dad got a promotion to line manager at the factory he worked at. So, after a bit of saving, we were able to sell the house and move into a better part of town. I didn't care about any of that, though. As far as I was concerned, it most certainly wasn't a better house. The house had more rooms, sure. With our small family, my 12-year-old self didn't see the point in a bigger home. I had no idea at the time my parents were planning on having another baby. More rooms didn't mean more fun. It was a one-story home. It had no real attic and no basement. Only crawl spaces to access the air ducts as well as the lines that provided electricity throughout the rooms. To me, the house was dull and boring. The week after unpacking, I sat in the living room, absent-mindedly flipping through channels on the television. My dad was walking through the living room on his way into the kitchen when he stopped to look at me.
Justin, you just can't sit in here all day. It's beautiful outside. Why don't you go out and play?
I simply shrugged. He walked over and took the remote from my hand.
Look, you've done nothing but watch TV and play video games since we got here, and I don't like it. There's some kids playing ball outside. Why don't you go see if you can play with them?
I sighed obnoxiously in protest. The last thing I wanted to do was go hang out with a bunch of snobby rich kids.
But I don't.
He cut me off.
No buts. You aren't going to waste all summer inside. Now, go.
Like Dad had said, it was a beautiful summer day. The sky was clear and the sun shone brightly. It was hot, and it may have been unbearably so if it weren't for the cooling breeze. Somewhere, I could hear the sounds of kids laughing and shouting. It took me a moment to gather the courage to go searching. Most of my childhood had been spent playing inside. There weren't any kids I knew from school that lived near my old home. Finally, I walked out and stood on the front lawn, looking to my left toward the end of the street and the sound of the kids. High Street was a cul-de-sac connected to several others that all ended in a circle. When I stared down the street, I saw a group of kids gathered around a basketball hoop that someone had wheeled out into the middle of the circle. I immediately considered turning back around and going into the house. There wasn't anyone in the crowd I recognized, and I'd lost all the nerve I'd gathered before I walked onto the yard. Before I could turn around, a voice called after me.
Justin!
A boy in the group of kids was waving me over. It was Taylor Redmond, a boy who I often sat with at lunch in school along with a few other kids, though I'd never been to his house. He broke off from the other kids and jogged over to me.
Hey man, you live here now?
Yeah, just moved. He nodded.
I knew you were moving, I just didn't know it was here. I live in the house across the street.
He gestured to the blue two-story home behind me. I looked up to one of the windows on the second floor. I was green with envy.
Hey, why don't you come play with us? If we have you, we can do 6-on-6.
I looked over to the four boys down the road while they stared back at me, patiently waiting for Taylor to return.
I'll play. Not very good, though.
Neither are they, trust me.
We made our way to the end of the circled street, and Taylor introduced me to the kids. In near unison, they all gave their names back. Good or remembered, and in moments we were playing. Taylor called out that I would be on his team along with a tall, lanky kid with red hair and freckles. We played 3 games, 2 of which we won before the group started thinning out. First, the red-haired kid left, saying that he had to go help his dad with something. Then a pudgy boy with glasses said he'd promised his mom he'd be home before 4, until finally it was just me and Taylor. With just the 2 of us, we'd settled on playing a game of horse. I don't remember which one of us it was that overshot the hoop and landed the ball in the yard at the end of the street. What I do remember is the look on Taylor's face when it happened. He stood still as a stone while the ball rolled through the grass. I stared at him with a puzzled look. What's wrong with you? I took a step toward the house.
Justin, don't.
Taylor spoke softly, as if he didn't want someone to hear him.
Don't what? Get the ball?
Yeah, just leave it. I'll have my dad buy me another one.
I would have ignored him, just kept walking and retrieved the ball, but the look on Taylor's solemn face gave me pause. There was a stillness in the air, a stifling quiet that had fallen over High Street in that moment. Despite the warm summer air, I shivered. I turned my gaze from Taylor to the house. It was a nice house, the nicest on the street, but it was also old. It was set a bit further back than the rest of the homes, so I hadn't really noticed before, but seeing it then made me realize how much it contrasted to the other houses on the street. The style was similar to an American colonial house. It had whitewashed wooden siding, a large wraparound porch complete with a bench swing, and a tall stone chimney that smoke was steadily pouring out of. The basketball must have been thrown pretty hard because it rested against the gate of the wooden privacy fence that prevented any clear view of the yard. The fence had been painted to match the house, and covered a large area as far as I could tell. If I had to guess, the backyard was about 200 feet across, before ending in a small thicket of woods whose trees I could see stretching out over the other side of the fence. When I turned my attention back to the ball, I could see movement through the gaps in the fence.
Why don't we just go get it?
That's Mr. Crack's house.
I turned to look at him. Mr. Cracks. Taylor simply shook his head, and in a low voice he asked me to follow him. He turned around and began walking down the street. Reluctantly, I followed, turning back to steal another glance at the fence. Thought I could see someone standing still beyond it, but I couldn't be sure. The two of us made our way down the sidewalk until we were in front of my house. Then, Taylor looked up and down the street until he was sure no one was around. Then he spoke.
Never goes into Mr. Crack's yard.
Why?
Because if you do, you disappear, and you're never found again.
I laughed.
It's not a joke. You remember Jimmy Eddleton, right?
The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place where I'd heard it, so I shook my head. Taylor rolled his eyes.
Come on, Jimmy Eddleton. He disappeared 3 years ago.
That certainly rang a bell. Thought for a moment, and then it clicked. Never knew Jimmy. We weren't in the same grade. I did remember the assembly we had after he disappeared, though. Everyone thought he was kidnapped, so the whole school got one big lecture about how we should be on the lookout for strangers. And if anyone we didn't know tried talking to us, we should find an adult.
Okay, yeah. Sort of remember. He was younger than us, right?
Taylor nodded.
By 2 years.
Okay, so what does that have to do with anything? Why do you keep calling him Mr. Cracks?
He shrugged.
His real name is Harold Martin. He lives all alone in the big old house, and he hardly ever comes out. We call him Mr. Cracks.
Taylor said, stooping down to sit in the grass. I followed suit and sat beside him.
Because that's how he watches us. Before Jimmy disappeared, kids would walk into his yard all the time. It was no big deal. Everyone on this street knows each other, so all the kids use the yard as sort of a big playground. My mom said everyone likes it that way. It's everyone to feel a little bit safer. I'm sure you noticed. Kids just kind of go wherever.
I hadn't noticed, but I nodded right away.
Well, Mr. Crack's yard wasn't any different, except for one thing. We'd only go if we lost something over there, like we did with my basketball. Frisbees or baseballs or whatever accidentally got thrown onto his lawn, we'd go get. I went over there myself a couple times, but I hated it every time.
I sat in rapt attention, waiting for Taylor to continue.
If any of us kids went into that yard and got anywhere near that fence, he was always there. He would wait behind the fence and watch us through the cracks. That's why we called him that.
Taylor waited a moment and got a far-off look in his eyes as he spoke.
The last time I was ever over there, I went to get my soccer ball. Kicked it a little too hard and it landed right up against the side of his house. I jogged over as quick as I could, really planning to look up, you know? I didn't want to see anyone watching me. As soon as I grabbed the ball, though, I heard breathing. It was really raspy and loud, like he was trying to catch his breath. I didn't want to look, but I did. I looked right up at that fence and I saw his eyes. The meanest, ugliest eyes I'd ever seen.
Taylor closed his eyes and shook his head.
I think we'll just do this.
Trying to get the memory from his mind. I was a bit unnerved, sure, but I've heard about peeping old men before.
You know, he's a creepy dude. Doesn't mean he did anything to Jimmy.
Taylor turned and looked at me as if I was the biggest idiot in the world. He took a deep breath and went on speaking.
Jimmy's big sister Lily was watching him the day he disappeared. Jimmy's family lived in the gray house that's closest to the fence.
Taylor nodded over to the ranch dog. That, as he said, stood about 50 feet from Mr. Crack's fence.
He said she was talking on the phone while Jimmy was running around that day, just chasing bubbles that he was throwing around. 1 minute, she turned her back, and the next, he was gone. She ran around the yard calling his name and searching
Think
for
we
the
can
trees.
do
She
this.
noticed the bubble wand was in Mr. Crack's yard. She called the police. The cops showed up.
There we go.
asked Lily a few
Do
questions.
this.
To talk to Mr.
We do this.
At this point, everyone on the
We do
street
this.
all the adults, including my parents, were standing on the street, waiting to see what would happen. But nothing. They questioned Mr. Cracks, who let them search the house. They didn't find anything.
Just so I can get some more cards, we do this.
Taylor's home.
Taylor, time for dinner.
Taylor jerked his head up.
Right there, Mom.
We do that.
Taylor's mom was standing on the front stoop of her home. She waved once before heading back inside. Taylor stood and brushed dirt and grass off the butt of his jeans. I did the same.
And
I was
then
about
we
to say
go
he looked at me with a serious expression.
My dad said Mr. Martin is too old and frail anyway, that there's no way.
miracle, I think. 280, yeah, that's
All
fine.
grown-ups think we made that up. None of them ever say they've seen him waiting on the other side of that fence. I
Crown
think he's
that.
too chicken. He knows
Discard another
they
card.
just
Okay, so I do use that to get rid of that. He's probably gonna use Aura Spear. 57 for 180.
With that, Taylor
Or,
turned
no,
and strode off.
I generally don't know anymore now.
Leaving me to stand there and think about his story. Harold Martin, a man that the adults on High Street thought was old and frail. A man that also seemed to watch the children wherever they went, granting him a nickname. Was Mr. Cracks really the cause of Jimmy Eddleton's disappearance? It was a question I pondered as I stared at the old colonial dust
What?
had fallen over High Street, casting a purplish hue over the house as the sun began to fall over the horizon. In that light,
Huh?
the house seemed more menacing, and before
I'm sorry,
I
what?
even realized it, I was standing in the yard of the man the kids called Mr. Cracks. I don't know why I did it. Some part of me
I'm sorry, what?
imagined the look on Taylor's face when I showed up at his door with the basketball in hand. Then there was the part of me that wanted to see those eyes that Taylor mentioned. Eyes that were so ugly and full of anger that it had left no doubt in his mind that the old
I
man
have to go
was
watch that
responsible
again.
for a missing boy.
Because I'm so confused how I just saw this.
I made my way toward the basketball that still rested against the gate of the privacy fence. I kept looking back at the front of the house and then to the fence for any sign of movement, but I saw none. I couldn't help but pretend I was some sort of spy on a secret mission. I was a little scared, but I felt more excited than anything. Soon I was right in front of the gate. I didn't pick up the ball at first. I waited for any sound that would indicate someone was waiting to jump out and attack me. Then, when I was sure I was still alone, I stooped down to grab the ball. Before my hands touched it, however, I heard the sound of something tapping rapidly on glass. I jerked up and looked in the direction of the noise. Standing at a window on the side of the house placed near the fence was an old man. It wouldn't have surprised me one bit if someone told me the man was 100. His face was gaunt and covered in liver spots. It's bald, with only a few white wisps of hair left on his shiny head. His eyes were sunken in and tired, yellowed with age, not at all like Taylor had said. He panicked and was waving his hands frantically at me. He tried to yell, but his call was meek and feeble. I raised up my own hand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaving. I'm just grabbing my ball.
That's when I heard it. It's heavy, raspy breathing. It was coming from the other side of the fence. My head turned back, thinking I knew I had made an awful mistake. There, in the gaps of the fence, I saw eyes. The outer white of them were red and bloodshot, but both the iris and pupil were black as coal. They were angry eyes, full of malice. These were the eyes Taylor had described. What he didn't say, or more likely didn't notice, was whoever these eyes belonged to could not have been an adult. The eyeline was too
Take
low, just a
two.
bit shorter than I was. He got the breathing wrong, too. wasn't the sound of someone trying to catch their breath. The sound of someone that didn't even know what breathing was. It was broken up. It was like whoever was doing it kept forgetting they were supposed to be breathing. I was rooted to the spot, mystified by what I was seeing and hearing. My breath seemed to stop.
Now we go.
My gaze was transfixed with the eyes of the person on the other side of the fence. The person who'd watched the kids of High Street for so long. The person who couldn't possibly be Mr. Martin. There was movement in my peripheral vision, and I slowly turned my head to see what was causing the disturbance. My mind screamed at what I saw. There were more eyes. Dozens of pairs of angry eyes stared out at me from behind the fence. In horror, I watched as several pallid gray hands began to rise above the fence and grasp the top of it, as if whoever the hands belonged to planned to climb over. That nightmarish sight finally allowed me to find the will to move. I turned and sprinted home without even looking back. When I burst into the front door, my parents were both sitting at the kitchen table. They saw the look on my face and rushed over, asking me what was wrong. I broke down, began crying, spouting nonsense about Mr. Cracks and eyes behind the fence. I didn't know it at the time, but my dad was already all too familiar. He gave to Mr. Martin. While my mother stayed by my side and tried to console me, my father called the police. I don't know what he said to the cops. I heard him scream something like, "Something better be done about this." Be too sure. It was in complete
I think I switch.
wrapped in a blanket when the police came. But I was
I will do this.
My father waited outside as a squad car
Do
pulled
that.
up to our house, and the police spoke to him before moving to Mr. Cracks. The two officers knocked on the front door a few times. They checked the house. After seeing
Okay, we will take new VMAX, I believe.
I had seen him at, they forced their way inside.
Yeah, new VMAX.
Later, they came back outside.
We do this.
To arrive.
We do
My
this.
dad's brother, Jeff, works as a paramedic.
More
Maybe
damage.
on call that. He talked to my dad before they took the body away, letting him know that Mr. Martin
We will do more in a second.
cardiac arrest.
We got boss's orders. I think we will then boss in whatever one. Okay, no, never mind. We will not boss in any
On the couch in the living room,
unless
drinking
he
beer.
has
After bearing witness to what was a man needing
rare
to open
candy
from a heart
and
attack, my dad didn't
a
bother
Charizard.
about going outside for a while.
He's such a freaking recluse. No one on the street even realized he was famous. Yeah, what happens to someone to make them live their lives like that when they're sitting on so much money?
no, I think we just take out this Charizard, the Minion V.
He was clearly uninterested. Her monotone voice didn't even attempt to hide her lack of enthusiasm. I, however, was listening intently. Not only was the man known as Mr. Cracks completely innocent and undeserving of the nickname the kids gave him as far as I was concerned, but he was also famous. Whether Mom was listening or not, Dad seemed to be wondering out
And
loud.
we do that. Take that out.
Her.
We have to take out that Radiant Charizard soon, though.
Assumed you got tired of it. What Jeff said is true. They
Probably next turn, because
it's insane. But they're worth a lot of money.
yeah, it just needs
Man, I wish
2 energy, and it will be able to attack.
passed it away.
Mind you, it can't attack next turn then, but
Took a
even
loud
still,
coffee before he went on.
I think we just boss in that though. Boss in the Radiant Charizard.
Know about art.
Or hopefully it you do
Dad
good.
went on with his tirade for a while, but I didn't hear anything beyond his very next words.
Yeah, we just boss in the Charizard now.
My body became cold as ice.
He never
Do
did anything.
that.
He only sculpted women with their heads carved into the center of their
Boss
stomach.
in that. Melodious Echo. Boom. perfect. I think we'll use Cram with Meletta to grab something. Maybe we grab an Iono if I have one in here. Yeah, I think we just... I'll say grab one now. Okay, so...
Signs posted to
I thought it was any card, but I guess not.
people will be drawn.
No, don't
In
judge.
this tale from author Marshall
We take Iona.
mishap at an abandoned building
No, our
ends up
vacancy.
having tragic consequences for
Even though Iona's still right here.
Performing this tale are Atticus Jackson and Ellie Hirschman. So heed the warnings and learn the lesson from Chuck.
Okay. Yeah, my laundry definitely should be done. Well, at least done to swap over, so let me collect this real quick. And I'll be in chat again, I'm very sorry.
I pushed Chuck Parker into a well and stayed there watching him until he went down and didn't come up again. When I told his mother, she thanked me and gave me a hug. Did I know Chuck before this? Kinda, sorta. He was just part of the flock of neighborhood kids that hung out together. We weren't old enough to self-segregate, so everybody was sort of a friend to everybody. If I think real hard, I think maybe I can pick his face out of certain memories here or there. I don't know if he's the one who yelled "run" that day. It could have been anyone. My mind didn't bother to note the voice. I thought it was all part of some new game at Jungle City. At that age, we had already decided that new buildings were a bore. When they rotted or got torn down, it was only a jumble of paper-thin drywall. When old buildings went, they created ruins. The Henley Gasworks left a crumbling brick foundation overgrown with pokeberries and weed pecans. It was our Jungle City. There we played updated games of tag and hide and seek, ducking jungle beasts and witch doctors. We had just come off a game of magic tag when the scream came. Did we all recognize the urgency in the voice, or did we write it off as another facet of the great game? The voice told us to run. Don't ask, just go now. We went. Skipping and laughing, we ran from the building. No one noticed Chuck was left behind until we hit Graham Street and the beginnings of civilization again. Hadn't he been the one who yelled? But then, why hadn't he been first out of the building? Michelle had seen him sitting on the edge of the hole rotted through to the water-filled basement, but got distracted by the tag game long before the scream. When we got to the war monument that guarded the entrance to our street, Chuck was already there. None of us were alarmed. It was only natural that Chuck had gotten there first. Perhaps he had ducked out before us without being seen. Gradually, as we talked to him, it began to dawn on us that something was wrong. The smell hit you first. The whole time Chuck was around, you would always smell this meaty, fruity odor rolling off him in waves. Our teacher had to open the windows of the classroom on the days he actually bothered to show up. It only got worse the longer he was around. Whatever it was started putrefying. Chuck was all damp. He lounged in the lap of the monument like a king on a throne, smiling with confidence beyond his years. We greeted him, laughing about how he had beat us there. Chuck didn't say anything to us that first afternoon, which would have probably tipped us off earlier on that something wasn't right. He just slid off the monument like he was rainwater, walked behind the group. We plugged our noses and joked about him falling in sewer water. When we went our separate ways, Chuck tried to follow Kelly, so we reminded him that he didn't live close to her. Ben volunteered to get him home. I think he was a little concerned about the way Chuck didn't appear to have a sense of direction. The next morning, my mom spent 20 minutes on the phone, and when she hung up,
She told me we weren't allowed to go back to the gasworks building. Chuck had fallen into something bad. It made him sick. I couldn't ever go back. Was that clear? I whined at first, but after the weird shit started happening, I was only too glad to stay away from that place. Maybe Chuck had fallen into something bad. But Chuck wasn't sick. Chuck wasn't Chuck. And we realized this over the course of the next few days. Phil was jumping off this ledge at the quarry with a few of the guys. We called it the Death Cliff, but it couldn't have been more than 7 feet off the ground. Phil said Chuck was quiet, like he'd been since the gasworks, until it came his turn to jump. Chuck walked to the edge and just looked down like he didn't know what to do. Phil yelled, "Go." The others yelled, "Go." Chuck stepped off the edge. Phil was a solid kid, always had your back in a fight. So when he said Chuck's knees went backwards when he landed, I believed him. Phil said it wasn't a regular hyperextension either. Chuck nearly bent in half the wrong way. Then, slowly, he stood up straight with a little smile on his face. The others climbed off the rock, asking if he needed to go to the hospital.
No.
They realized why he hadn't said anything before. His voice, when he spoke, sounded too thick and deep, like something trying to imitate a kid with adult vocal cords. Anne was kind of the class blabbermouth, so when she said she saw Chuck take a bite out of a dead kitten, I was less inclined to believe her. She said that she'd been walking home on a street near our neighborhood, and she saw Chuck crouching down by a little furry shape. She watched him poke furiously. His head went down, and she heard the crunch. Chuck came up, mouth slick with red.
Also pretty, pretty.
She was too scared to cry. She said she couldn't tell if the body was just wiggling under the force of his assault, or if the kid was still alive. When I met Chuck later that day, his breath smelled like death. I was a little kinder to Anne after that. I wasn't in the lunchroom when he spat in Kevin's milk, but plenty of other people were. They told me of how he waited till Kevin's back was turned, put his mouth over.
I think I'll try a few more games and we'll see how it is.
Of spit. An endless yellow drool fell from his mouth into the milk. He ended it just before Kevin turned around.
2 more games would be good enough.
Straightforward. Kevin took it and got away quickly from
Actually, not just the rest of this episode.
Someone accidentally on purpose ran into
It'll probably just be this game.
The suddenly thick milk everywhere. In addition to these events, there were all the little things we noticed day by day.
I think there's been the last match.
Smell evolved over time. All the whites of his eyes had a bluish tint.
Debatable for this hand, in all honesty.
He was a brunette. How he moved strangely, nodding his head when no one had said anything. Reggie nudged me one day, pointing in silent terror to the back of Chuck's head. Chuck was talking to Ben, his back to us. As he spoke, I watched the back of his head flex and bulge, like the jawbones extended behind his skull. It was almost 2 weeks after Chuck came back wrong that I ran into his mother. I was walking to the school bus and I saw her car parked at the end of the alley. She was a mess. Like she hadn't showered or slept since Chuck got back. She motioned for me to come over, so I got in the car. When she spoke, her voice was just dead. I'd never before seen someone so deeply in despair they couldn't show emotion. His mom asked how I was. I said fine. She asked how well I knew Chuck. I said, well enough.
I think we'll just do that.
Sorry.
And
And I probably knew too.
this isn't really the best hand.
Things he should have known.
My Jack probably screwed that up. I should have just kept the power towel, but I don't know why I used it.
He wouldn't bathe. She tried to put him in the shower and he bit her. He'd left teeth in her skin when he did that. She found loose teeth all over the house.
more than should have been in his mouth. She said she didn't know what to do. She wanted to know what had made him this way. I told her my best guess. I know what it sounds like now, childhood flight of fancy. But she didn't laugh or berate me for making up stories. She gave me a limp hug and thanked me, told me to stay away from him until we could figure out what to do. She dropped me off at school because we'd been talking too long and I missed the bus.
This is gonna kill it.
Class that morning,
No, it's not. Okay.
as she drove away,
246.
I saw something at the far end of the baseball diamond. It looked like Chuck, and yet someone small by the hand. I thought a lot about what I did that day. Why I didn't
That
run and
kind of screws me over a bit. What the hell would I do?
tell someone. It's because I knew, even then, that it would be too slow, and I knew whatever he was up to had to be stopped quick. I caught up with him outside the school, because I didn't want to attract too much attention.
I'm gonna play this up, but there's no way I think I can win this. Especially with the hand that I have, just 2 immunity mixes with absolutely nothing else, and haven't been able to get really much of anything else useful.
I called for him to stop. Chuck turned around and his body moved that shouldn't have. That yellow drool was leaking from his mouth and eyes.
It's probably gonna be, he's gonna retreat, bring up Arcanine, and
I asked what he was doing.
yeah, that's gonna be what probably happens. Retreats the Raikou, brings up the Arcanine EX, attaches a fire energy here, and does 40 damage. No. I think it's 80 damage? No. 60 damage. Rare can, no? I was gonna say probably Charmin, Rare Candy the Charmander into a Charizard.
Told him to lead on. I knew he was leading us to the gasworks long before we
Yeah,
got onto the
retreat
district.
the Raikou into the Arcanine and 60 damage. Oh,
Maybe this Chuck's mom mentioned
okay.
he might walk.
Because
I told him he needed to
that actually would be probably actually would have been a little bit better.
stop.
Because, well, 60 that or 60 of that.
Big enough to follow. I called him closer. Closer. The real Chuck would have known.
Okay, yeah, no, now it's definitely going to be
Down.
attach energy here or here.
He didn't fall right in. Big.
Retreat this, bring up one of those, and end the game.
Back to get him in there. Made too big of a splash. Watched through the crack. Screaming at me in a voice that didn't sound human anymore. Kept trying to climb up the sides and falling back down.
Usually they only put up 1.
Took forever to go under. I walked home. Sure.
Why? I mean, I get it, you want to make this sub, like, you could have ended this.
Told me what to
Yeah,
say.
no, it's done for now.
Chuck had tried to run away.
With just a single battle of VIP pass, there's nothing much I can really do here.
Lost him. Everyone accepted it. Chuck had been acting strangely. Wasn't outside the realm of possibility. Tammy never spoke up either. I think she realized how close she came to danger. Either that or she blocked it out. Wish I could block
Are you going to 60 or do more
sight
damage?
of Chuck clawing at the sides of the well, arms and legs rotating as if every joint was a ball inside.
Nope, just do that. Okay.
Have I ever regretted doing it, though? I still have to wonder whether Chuck is really dead in there. Whether something had changed him or just replaced him. And it haunts me to wonder what the hell he told us to run from that first day in the gasworks.
Well, thank you everybody for coming out to the rest of the day/night. And I hope to